Hey everybody, welcome to our third in the series, webinar series on digital decor surface innovation. And I thought I'd do this webinar in our hometown of Stillwater, Minnesota. So welcome to my neighborhood home decor store, Abbott Paint and Carpet. Everyone in this area comes to this store if they're going to be replacing their window treatments, their flooring. It's a great place to come shop and get help by the super staff that's here. It's a great place for us to start this webinar on using digital imaging and digital manufacturing technologies to perhaps better improve the sampling process. So let's take a look around a sampling department. We see carpet, we see window treatments, we see different flooring materials, we see cut piles, wovens. Back over this way we've got hardwoods, laminates, and vinyls. Why don't we go take a look? I thought this would be a perfect place for us to start our webinar on sampling and using digital technologies for imaging and printing to perhaps do the sampling process a little bit better. For example, here's an LVT product where all the material have been cut out and put on this board. I wonder if it might not be better just to include one physical sample and perhaps digitally reproduce the other colors on this board or something similar, or perhaps printed sheets that the customer can take home with them. A more sustainable option, lower cost, and perhaps better communicates the customer's expectations. Not just manufactured products, but natural products as well. There's a great wood product here by Wickham. Beautiful products, but some of them have different colorways. For example, this birch, there's some real beautiful darks and lights. What's the customer expecting? Does a 2-foot by 2-foot sample of wood truly manage their expectations? What if you digitally image a larger section of floor and are able to reproduce that in print with larger sheets so they can bring home and put on their floor? Or perhaps use a CGI visualization and model it in their home with all of the colorways represented. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's webinar. So let's get started. Well, I hope you guys liked my hometown of Stillwater. That was it was our local paint and carpet store, and we thought we'd go by and check it out and see the samples that the market is putting out into the industry. And what we're going to be talking about today was how we can improve on that process, how we can make that process less time-consuming, less expensive, and above all, more communicative of the process. So that's what that video was. I apologize for the audio being so poorly done. Okay, so this is number 3, the last in a series of seminars that we've put on. So thank you for joining. I'm not sure of those on the group that have attended all 3 or not. I've already gone sort of through some housekeeping in the beginning. We're all available to talk over the line together, so no need to use the chat or Q&A function as I would have otherwise suggested. So please chime in if you have any questions during the presentation. But the series of events has been all about digital and how it's impacting the decor industry. And in the decor industry, we're talking about switch side. We're really talking about, these things that we're looking at. We've seen growth in exterior products. We've seen growth on interior flooring and furniture, and in textiles as well. So anyone in the business of producing decor surfaces and are using printing technologies to do so, that's what we're talking about in this series of webinars. Number 3. So for those that are new, a little bit about CGS, and I won't bore you on all the details, but we've been around. CGS is a company that's around the globe, does business on every continent. CGS ORIS Americas is the organization that we work for, based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is a dealer and technical service entity for CGS ORIS. That's a Germany-based software company in color management and proofing medias. Metascanners, which is based out of Rome, Italy, and they're the leading surface imaging technology in the industrial markets, as well as the cultural heritage markets. There isn't a better scanner in the world than the Metas. And then out of the UK, AVA CAD/CAM, which is a design and layout software specifically focused on the needs of the decor industry. We've talked about the solutions, and one of our sales managers, Denise Floyd, came up with this circle that really talks about everything kind of fits together in this piece, and that's really the philosophy of our company. From imaging all the way, imaging and approvals all the way through to manufacturing, and then reporting on our manufacturing, all can be done in a controlled, repeatable, and objective way. We like to say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But in our business, we think that the beauty, if beauty can be measured and quantified, we can repeat it. So my wife said that sounded creepy, but I wanted to tie it to the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So what does this mean for our business? It means about predictable, accurate color. And if we're in a manufacturing plant, we want our proofs and our samples and our manufacturing lines, they need to look like each other. And it's not just a given, because their printing technologies doesn't mean they're going to match. And those of us on the call already know that. So within a plant, we need to match. And if we're going to go print down in Sydney with Mr. Leach, we can do it over a global supply chain. So that's what CGS ORIS is really all about. You're also familiar with this workflow image. And in week 1, we had a session with Peter Garlington of Interprint, who did a great presentation on digital decor surfaces for, generally speaking, on the roll side, the paper side of the business, but did a fantastic job of talking about how design processes are gone about, and then how that is applied in the production setting. Do we go reviewer analog, or do we go digital? Did a great presentation there. The second session, we talked about the Metascanner specifically, and how we can capture color, texture, and glossiness more than just the color of the product. We're really interested in the surface appearance of the product. And we talked about how to use that technology in concert with modern manufacturing methods, specifically single pass digital printing, direct to substrate, and what that process is like and types of files that you need to do that effectively. And today, we're really going to kind of bring it all together in the sampling process. The sampling process is all of the above. We're going to be, setting a target. We're going to be imaging products once they've been manufactured. And then we're going to proof those products, and we're going to manufacture them across, in some cases, a global supply chain. And so you probably are familiar with this outline for those that attended. We've already been through steps 1 through 4. And so step 5 is the sample and print production process, and a bit on CGI visualization as a non-printing method of communicating our surfaces. So the good folks at Shaw Flooring did me a solid favor. They really put together a presentation on how the system that we've been talking about, that circle, if you will, of objective capture and objective evaluation and objective communication of color information and other surface attributes can drive significant improvement. So Shaw came on board, and Adam Thomas is the leader of the sample production team at Shaw, and they implemented our workflow. And it drove not only significant cost savings, but improvements in metrics like speed to market, sales, and customer engagement. So we've got this great presentation from the folks at Shaw. Now, it is 1 year old. I think they like having a good head start on the industry, and I tip my hat to them for that. Now, these are the groups that they serve. They are no small set of organizations that they support, representing tens of thousands of SKUs and thousands of salespeople. The products that they support, for those that are familiar with the flooring industry in particular, or anyone that's shopped for flooring at Home Depot or at Stillwater, Abbott Paint and Carpet, these are the materials that they are responsible for, the pictures in them, the details on the boards, doing their best to communicate
what those products are going to look like once they're installed. So we can have a big problem, as we talked about when we were in the local hardware store, is those small little sample boards don't always tell the full story. Like on the left-hand side, we have a high variation in the color. You see that one super dark board up front and some light boards. On a small sample board, unless you have this image, customers really not going to have a good idea of what they're going to receive until it's installed. And if it's not what they were expecting, you may end up having a redo. The same is true for issues like widths and lengths of product. You know, if you're not able to show them all the material out of the boxes, you know, how do you best communicate that information to your customers? And these are the challenges that they face. And they not only face it just for those hard surface products, but they also face it for their soft surface products as well. So it's a team that has a big responsibility, like I said, tens of thousands of SKUs and responsibility to get accurate samples out to the marketplace. Not easy. So they've opened up their workflow to us a little bit, and it's probably not dissimilar to other workflows that our audience is a part of. Approval processes, many constituencies. So we get a product approved because the art department has to run around and approve the images. Once it leaves, and goes to our vendor department. Now they have to run it through their process, and they run through their approval processes. When art department and vendor art department aren't aligned, there's duplications of efforts. And of course, now you've got another set of approvals that happen on a press check. Did we get the two previous processes right? And if we didn't, do we go all the way back to the beginning? It's a process that a lot of us in the printing industry are all too familiar with, and we just lack confidence in the process. So Shaw, set out to change that. And one of the things I really appreciate about their organization is how they went about doing that. So they first went to their guiding principles, which are really well articulated. And I think, you know, reading them, it's pretty exciting. I think organizations should have this type of thing, but really like how what's the customer expecting? Everything is built around that customer. And I bring each of these points up because they all impact kind of the tools that they'll be showing that they're using to make this process a success. So everything is integrated. You know, you can't have disparate parts, but you certainly need it to be simple. And you have to apply technology that's relevant. And that can be a big task, wading through all the technologies that are out there and the next best thing that's going to solve every problem. Huge thing, variability. Absolutely is the problem in this printing or in communicating samples. Variability of the product, variability of the samples that we show our customers, and then you tie in their expectations and it becomes a difficult thing to overcome. Extreme ownership, and then speed. So I love that they use those as their guiding principles. And then they evaluated their situation. The sample department is quite slow. It's quite manual. There's a lot of cutting and gluing and photo shoots, color approvals at every step. You know, there are things that they didn't realize they didn't have. You know, one studio uses one lighting, another studio uses another lighting. One printer uses one method of printing, another printer uses another method of printing. And so Shaw said, let's look at these problems through our guiding principles. So they took a stab at it. It took sort of an anecdotal stab, if you will, but it was a very good effort at saying, how do we solve the variability issue? And then all the other things as well. So they put this in there on purpose just to say that, listen, we tried our best with the tools that we had to make this work. In this case, they're showing in the picture, they would ask printers to print these products and lay them side by side, and they were trying to determine what's the middle ground. And that was better than just, you know, going at them ad hoc and then replacing flooring when customers' expectations weren't met. But they knew there was a better way. And they also had a goal, because of the constituencies that they serve, which is internal salespeople, it's external dealers, it is all the stakeholders within their organization. And so they needed a goal to get this process that was really done in hours and days into 30 minutes in order for them to meet their objectives. And so their challenges that they identified, and at this point we were engaged with Shaw and helping to identify challenges, that things were taking days, not minutes. There was no target space. What was a target space? Some folks really weren't paying attention to that particular issue. Lighting standards, printing standards, substrates. The variability issue, as you can see, was loud and clear. Too much variable in the process. And they were really looking to how do they go from that variability and that subjectivity to an objective process. Again, going by their guiding principles, they knew to create some discipline in the process. And that discipline needed data, essentially. We go down this list, it's all about gathering data. So we need colorimetric information in order to make informed decisions. And of course, those would need some tools. And these tools will enable them to validate the success and to hold them to account when the results aren't falling within these sets of tolerances. So what we see here is a list of product images that he threw out there. And it aligns kind of with our circle that we had. It has a scanner. It has an imaging point of entry for our sample material, whether that's a carpet, a natural wood, an LVT, an SPC, sheet vinyl, you name it. It has to come into the environment in a consistent method. And then the next step in the process was defining a color space and validating that image inside of that color space. So you need a monitor, color calibrated monitor, and then tools to measure all those colors coming out. At the end of the day, though, we need to communicate what was input on the scanner through tools like proofing, physical proofing, monitor proofing, etc. And it was all about getting the right equipment and training so that these production devices would all get consistent results. Oops. So again, this presentation is from a year ago, but we can see that, and the presentation was given just inside of a year of after the system was implemented. And you can really see how the right guiding principles motivated the team members with the right technology, and they saw success. And I expect that the numbers of scans of SKUs that they've completed of planks, tiles, carpets is probably more than doubled than what we're seeing here. But the program was so successful by implementing a really simplified, objective workflow that they decided to brand it, which I think is super cool. So they trademarked their sample department's process, and they call it Color by Shaw. And Color by Shaw is sort of their own internal brand for serving their internal and external customers, and is even a program where external supply chain partners, if they want to participate, really need to participate in the Color by Shaw program. Super exciting, because as you couldn't hear too well in that crummy audio video, I was trying to say there is a better way to do samples. And so I thought I'd show a few samples of that they've done. I got these recently from the Shaw team. This brick well, it's a ceramic tile pattern, is completely fake, if you will. That's a digitally printed on foam core sample board. Color accurate to the product, large enough so that where a homeowner or a sales rep can easily pick up that board and carry it out to their customer site and use it as a step in the sales process. We're talking ounces, not pounds. It's more sustainable, less fuel to get it from one place to the next place, lower cost, honestly, to cut tile and get those mounted. Much faster, much easier to do it in a print method. We've got some other examples, really, really smart examples of making the kits smaller, but allowing them to show more information. Here we're showing 24 different carpet colorways. And this particular product has, I think, 5 patterns available to it. So they've chosen to show the patterns available with the samples. And then they're showing the colors using digital print. So we have to rely on color accurate input, color accurate output, so that when the customer sees this board, it makes it the sales process easier. It's a much lighter weight material to bring home. I can see and touch and feel the patterns of the existing samples, and I can get the colors that, you know, I'm not probably going to make a buying decision on this exactly, but maybe I'll pick 3 or 4 of the colorways below, and now I've saved that manufacturer from having to send more carpet samples out than is necessary. So again, the metrics on this type of the sample kit drives your shipping costs down significantly. It significantly increases your customer expectations on what the product is going to be. And you've certainly sped up your time to market. And my last sample that I'll show on this side of things is related to that wood board that I talked about and that laminate sample. My little animation on the board on the left isn't working right now, but on the front is one original piece of LVT, and on the back are digitally printed versions. So again, a much lighter way to get a board of LVT out into the store or out into in front of the customers, much lighter weight, and yet gives them all the colorways and a chance to feel the product. I like this one, super exciting to me. It is approximately 40 inches by 40 inches, so it's a larger piece to carry out, but it's designed to put on the floor. It's designed to tear off. So we get a much larger section of the planks at a 1-to-1 size rather than a reduced size. So now they can see the size of the plank. They can see a bigger selection of colorways, and they've got a means by which they can put it on the floor. And again, because the process can be defined and managed and repeated, these types of programs are possible, and the benefits on the sales side are proving to be quite profitable. So it goes back to this process. We start with a tolerance. We do our things like we're setting our print standards. We're setting out what are we trying to achieve. We're determining what kind of light sources are we going to use. And we're setting that stake in the ground. That's what this is. It's a signpost. And then we're taking that information in with the scanner when a scanner is needed. And then that information then gets communicated numerically and objectively throughout this entire process. So we're audio. Anyone have any questions about the aforementioned? I'm going to pause a minute and get into the CGI world. I have a few more slides on the CGI side of things, but any questions or comments or you know, anything of the above before I go on? I hear somebody quite faintly. Well, no questions. Okay, well then I'll assume that's great news. Everyone is just agape with astonishment and delight. So go back. The same process. There we go. The same process that we're using on the printing side of things applies to our visualizations. And this is a fast growing area of decor marketing and sales communications. It's been around for some time, but the technologies, the PCs are getting faster and faster. And thanks to technologies like the Metis, the visualizations are getting more realistic. In the scene in front of you are 4 separate scenes of the same kitchen. So this is a virtual kitchen. And all of the textile materials in these room scenes were scanned on our Metis scanner here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we supplied, it was really focused on the floor, but we also scanned pillows or fabrics for pillows and the seating pads there. But it was designed, this project, to show the products as they appeared when fully laid out on a kitchen floor. And the important thing about this particular product, and this is an engineered product, so it's a laminate with an emboss and register texture and a glossiness in register coating. And so the scanner captures the color without the texture and the specularity, but it also captures the depth map communicated in 2 formats, a normal map and a depth, and then lastly a specular map. So each of those planks in the floor below, in fact, for each of those floors, 5 unique planks were scanned, and then those planks randomized in the software and laid down into the scene. And when you look close, you can see how the shadows are appropriate, how the glossiness is different. It reflects light like it's naturally would reflect light. That's the purpose of these maps on this side. So by imaging consistently of the product, we can get a color correct render inside of these environments. And there's a couple more examples I'd like to show you. And I also wanted to bring into play, for those that are currently working with these companies or have these capabilities in-house, or they're working with external firms. In the A&D market, the architecture and design market, the BIM softwares are really becoming king. And to be able to supply those softwares with data that readily works in those environments is really critical to getting specified. I spoke to a specifier at one of the large architect firms here in Minneapolis. And he said that, well, you know, if we look around for material, like for example, he used Formica and Wilson Art. If Formica has a really good Revit ready texture available to me, and Formica doesn't, and they're similar products, I'm gonna use the Wilson Art product in my renderings. And when the customer, you know, moves on that project, the rendering that's specified in our proposal is likely going to be the Wilson Art. So that was an example to say it's really critical to get your materials into these environments or onto your website and readily available for download, so that people working in AutoCAD or SketchUp or Revit or Lumion or V-Ray, they can quickly access the maps that they're going to use in their renders. Did some fun renders here, and that's a piece of cork with some gold, has some shine to it. On the right is what's called a shader ball, and so it shows you how the material behaves on that shader ball. Here's another nice material. It's an embossed thick vinyl material, and you can see how the Metis data exported from the scanner. It outputs color, depth, glossiness, roughness, and it has a metalness attribute. That all gets reflected in this visualization software appropriately. But it doesn't even have to be that fancy. For an online retail environment, this is all CGI Scene, where we just take our Metis, or the artist rather, took the Metis files of this carpet. was able to lay it down into a room scene. I'm talking about the middle picture where it says view from the side. A nice 3D perspective of that carpet on its own. Of course, then we have a 2D view from the front. And then he popped that carpet into a sort of warmly lit room scene. So it's there. The market is increasingly going to visualizations to market their information. Obviously, e-commerce is really critically important. And so having the tools to do this in an objective format really saves time, really gets your product to the market more quickly, and better manages your customer expectations. So with that, my prepared remarks are complete. Make sure that everybody is unmuted. Any questions about the presentation? I love talking about this stuff. So I'll just be quiet for a second.
Hey, Rob, it's Graham Ripley.
Oh, hi, Graham.
Question about the process with Shaw. Is that something that they've just rolled in North America, or are they looking to, or have they rolled that globally? Do you know?
So the Shaw for Color, I believe, is a North American initiative. I don't know if they support them globally. I can certainly ask the question. I know in Dalton, where they do have their major sampling operations, because it's near where they produce much of their products, that it certainly could support globally, but I don't know. I'll find out for you.
Would you see the process differ at all if it was, a global platform?
Let me think about that. I really don't. I don't think so. I mean, by a global platform, you mean you have products that are being produced and sampled in a variety of locations, and then shipped independently, or is there a centralization?
I guess what I'm saying is, that this has obviously been a successful program in North America. Rolling this into Europe or APAC, would you see there be any difference in that process for those different countries or regions, I should say?
Actually, no. It would be identical. It would really be identical. And the great thing about it is you may have to translate into a color space. Like there could be a FOGRA standard in Europe, and we have a Grackle standard in the United States. But I know we have some shared color standards. That's one of the underpinnings to a successful print production, is to make a decision to print to a set color standard that is shared, preferably around the world. So ISO certification, ISO processes are really driven on making that a possibility. And I believe that in the printing arena, we have a global standard for color. So yes, this can be applied throughout the globe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Great question. My contact details are on the screen above. Please, 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 please. I love to talk about this stuff. It's all of us do. I know we've got some folks on the call from the West Coast. Louis Lau, our West Coast sales rep, is on the phone call as well. He could easily be available to meet and talk about CGS with our LA participants. Yeah, CGS is a global company. So whether you're in the UK or in Sydney, we're there too. And this decor market is quite exciting and expanding, and we hope we can help you improve the process. We've seen it before, and we'd like to make it happen for you too. So also, if you would like the presentation at all as a follow-up, please also send me a note, and we'll get that over to you. I have permission from the Shaw team to release that information. And thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.